The internet, a vast and sprawling landscape that connects and informs us. Yet it can also be a breeding ground for darkness. In 2009, a sinister figure emerged from the depths of an online forum. His name? Slender Man. He was tall and gaunt, faceless and eerie. This wasn't a monster in a movie. This was a monster born on the internet. Slender Man was the brainchild of Erik Knudsen, an artist participating in a Photoshop contest. The challenge was simple: create something paranormal. Knudsen's creation, 2 black and white images of children, was chillingly effective. He added a shadowy figure lurking in the background. Slender Man was born. The images quickly went viral. People were captivated by the unsettling figure. He was faceless, unknown. This only added to his mystique. Soon, Slender Man was everywhere. Fan art, short stories, and videos popped up online. He was no longer just 2 photoshopped images. He was a phenomenon, a chilling example of how quickly fear can spread in the digital age. Slender Man's rise was meteoric. He tapped into our primal fears, the fear of the unknown, the fear of the dark, the fear of something lurking just out of sight. People began adding to his mythology. They wrote stories about him stalking children. They created videos of him lurking in the woods. The internet became his playground. And as his legend grew, so did his reach. He infiltrated every corner of the web. Fan fiction, art, and even video games were dedicated to him. Slender Man was more than just a meme. He was a cultural phenomenon. He was a monster for the digital age. But the line between fiction and reality began to blur. Some people claimed to have seen Slender Man in real life. Others reported feeling his presence. The stories were often dismissed as hoaxes or hallucinations. But for some, the fear was real. Slender Man's influence was undeniable. He had a hold on the imaginations of millions. But for a small few, that hold would prove to be dangerous. Deadly even, because in the darkest corners of the internet, something sinister was taking root. The internet can be a dangerous place for young minds. It's a world of information, both good and bad. And for children who are still developing their critical thinking skills, it can be difficult to separate fact from fiction. This is especially true when it comes to something like Slender Man. For many kids, the internet is an escape, a place where they can be themselves without judgment. But it can also be a place where they are vulnerable to manipulation, especially from something as insidious as Slender Man. He preys on their fears. He whispers to them in the dark. And for some children, those whispers can be deafening. They become obsessed. They lose themselves in the fantasy. They start to believe that Slender Man is real and that he is watching them. This is where the danger lies, because when fantasy bleeds into reality, the consequences can be devastating. Waukesha, Wisconsin, a quiet suburb, a place where people felt safe. But on May 31st, 2014, that sense of security was shattered. 2 12-year-old girls, Morgan Geyser and Anissa Wire, lured their friend Payton into the woods. There, they stabbed her 19 times. The motive? To appease Slender Man. The girls believed that by sacrificing Payton, they would become his proxies. They would become his servants. They would prove their loyalty. The crime sent shockwaves through the community and beyond. How could 2 young girls commit such a horrific act? The answer, it seemed, lay in the dark corners of the internet. Morgan and Anissa had become obsessed with Slender Man. They believed he was real. They believed he wanted them to kill. And so they did. Section 5. Delusions and Despair. The Psyche of Young Believers. The Waukesha stabbing shocked the nation. How could 2 young girls be driven to such an act of violence? The answer lies in the complex and often fragile psyche of young minds. Adolescence is a time of immense change. Children are developing their sense of self. They are trying to understand the world around them. And in the age of the internet, they are bombarded with information. It can be overwhelming, especially for children who are already struggling with mental health issues. Morgan and Anissa were both diagnosed with schizophrenia spectrum disorder. This means that they had difficulty distinguishing between reality and fantasy. For them, Slender Man was real. He was as real as the trees in the woods, as real as the knife they used to stab their friend. Their delusions were fueled by their obsession with Slender Man. They spent hours online reading about him, watching videos about him, talking about him. Their grip on reality slipped further and further away, until the line between fantasy and reality disappeared completely. Section 6. When Fantasy Turns Fatal, the Premeditated Plot. The Waukesha stabbing was not a spur-of-the-moment act. It was a premeditated crime. Morgan and Anissa had been planning it for months. They had chosen their victim. They had chosen their weapon. They had chosen their location. They believed that Slender Man was communicating with them, directing them, telling them what to do. They believed that if they didn't carry out his wishes, he would harm them or their families. Their fear was all-consuming. It drove them to do the unthinkable. The girls lured Payton to the woods on the pretense of playing a game. They had brought a kitchen knife with them, the same knife they used to stab their friend. They attacked Payton without warning, stabbing her repeatedly, leaving her for dead. They then fled the scene, believing that Slender Man would protect them. Section 7. Echoes of a Nightmare, the Trial and its Aftermath. The trial of Morgan Geyser and Anissa Wire was a media sensation. The world watched in horror as the details of the crime unfolded. The girls' lawyers argued that they were not criminally responsible for their actions, that they were suffering from mental illness, and that they were victims of Slender Man's influence. The prosecution argued that the girls knew what they were doing, that they were motivated by a desire to please Slender Man, and that they should be held accountable for their actions. In the end, both girls were found not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. They were sentenced to indefinite commitment to mental health institutions. The Waukesha stabbing sent shockwaves through the nation. It was a stark reminder of the power of the internet and the dangers of online obsession. The case also raised important questions about mental health and the need for early intervention. Section 8. The Internet's Grip, a breeding ground for fear. The internet is a powerful tool. It can be used for good or for evil. In the case of Slender Man, it was used to create and spread fear. Slender Man is a product of the internet age. He could not exist without it. The internet allows for the rapid dissemination of information, both true and false. It allows people to connect with each other, and it allows for the creation of online communities. These communities can be a source of support and friendship, but they can also be breeding grounds for extremism and violence. Slender Man is a prime example of this. He was created in an online forum, he spread through online communities, and he inspired real-world violence. The internet is not inherently evil, but it can be used for evil purposes. Section 9. Protecting Young Minds, a Call for Awareness. The Waukesha stabbing is a tragedy. It's a reminder of the dangers that lurk online, and it's a call to action. We need to do more to protect young people from the dark side of the internet. We need to teach them how to be critical thinkers. We need to teach them how to distinguish between fact and fiction, and we need to teach them how to stay safe online. Parents need to be aware of what their children are doing online. They need to talk to their children about the dangers of the internet, and they need to seek help if they believe their child is struggling with mental health issues. Schools also have a role to play. They need to educate students about internet safety, and they need to provide support for students who are struggling with mental health issues. Section 10, a shared responsibility, navigating the digital age. The internet is here to stay. It's a part of our world, and it's not going away. We need to learn how to live with it, and we need to learn how to protect ourselves and our children from its dangers. The Waukesha stabbing was a wake-up call. It showed us that the internet can have very real consequences. It showed us that we need to be vigilant, We need to be aware of the dangers that lurk online, and we need to take steps to protect ourselves and our loved ones. Mental health is just as important as physical health. We need to break the stigma. We need to talk about mental health. And we need to seek help when we need it. The Waukesha stabbing was a tragedy, but it can also be a catalyst for change. We can learn from this tragedy. We can make changes to protect our children, and we can make the internet a safer place. It's our responsibility.